Okay, hello everybody. Good afternoon and good morning to a few of my Americans. Kieran's complaining. He said 9 a.m. man, the market opens at 9:30. I'm on a roll so far. Listen, don't make me break your stride, sir. Do you go on, you make that money. You can always watch this back. I know that you'll be here in spirit even when you're not here literally. But thank you for taking the time to join. I appreciate you guys. Shout out to Joy, Kieran, 4DV. What's going on, people? One Love Soul. How you guys doing? Everyone's saying early. I always do around this time for this channel, the King Mono Show. This is kind of the King Mono Show time because this is, well, I say mainly, but it's probably going to start to shift over time. But because the King Mono Show, I tend to have a little bit more of a British contingent. I like to give more of a British starting time, and then the King's monologue kind of like push to the evening because my audience is more worldwide with a lot of Americans. So I try and get a bit of more of a time that works for everybody. Shout out to Kieran Grant, who has just came in. He said, just in case I wander off, I appreciate the support. God knows I need it. So thank you very much for your $10 donation. I appreciate it very much. And if you wander off, I'll know exactly why you're not here. But yeah, shout out to you. And yeah, let's get this underway. So you'll probably see from the title of the video, I'm actually really proud of the thumbnail. Every now and then I do a thumbnail and I'm like, yeah. Gotcha, bitch. That's by the way, that was a reference to Dave Chappelle, the caption on the thumbnail. And then you've got the professor with a kind of surprised look with the book in his hand. I think that's a solid thumbnail. I'm going to give myself a pat on the back for that. I enjoyed that. But essentially, this live stream is going to be about the double standards and the nefarious characters surrounding the entire debacle regarding Professor Jason Arday. And I'm going to continue to call him Professor, even though he stepped down from the position, but he was there for 3 years. So why not call him Professor? I know many people undermine his capabilities, his ability and his intelligence, but I've seen no reason to undermine that. I think he got into the various positions he got into displaying that. You can't really like fake an interview for want of a better word. It's particularly in the field of academics. People can always know if they're talking to adult. They know if they're talking to a blagger, and they know if they're talking to someone who's the real deal. And I think all of the backlash that we're just currently seeing is the result of a witch hunt. But you all know that from being on my live streams. I've kind of laid out the evidence for that being the case. And none of this suggests that, you know, Professor Jason Arday is a perfect individual. None of it suggests that he is even literally the most capable individual. You know, there are people that are smarter than him, and there are probably people who maybe have less storied or checkered in terms of the backlog past than him. But if you're going to look at who he is and what he's presented, I actually think he's a very honest and a very admirable human being. And I'm going to do another live stream, not today's live stream, where he actually has an interview with a famous journalist over here in the UK. And you just get to hear him speak, because I think that's what's been missing in this whole ordeal, is the voice of Professor Arday. Have you noticed that's been entirely abstracted? We don't get to hear him speak. We haven't heard him defend himself. We haven't heard him, what his response to these claims are. They've drowned him in a mile of accusations. You know, they've completely drowned out his voice. They haven't allowed him to have any kind of vocalization. And that's the issue. This is what they're doing here. So you know you're dealing with a witch hunt, because it becomes all about the narrative and 0% about what's actually taken place. And one of the reasons I think this story hits me so hard is because it's a perfect illustration of what it's like to be Black in Britain. They'll always find a way of dragging you down. They'll always find a way of undermining you. They'll always find a way of amplifying your misgivings or your imperfections and making them sound like crimes and major flaws. And that's exactly what we see taking place here. And I'm not just saying that because I come with receipts. Today, we're going to look at an individual who's on the thumbnail called Professor William OReilly, who's committed a crime several times more heinous than the one that Professor Jason Arday is even being accused of. We don't even know if he's done it yet. The crime that William OReilly committed is proven, and it's levels above what Professor Arday done. We're going to get into that soon. Okay. Now, the interesting thing is they're both at Cambridge University. They're both in positions of professorship. But when William OReilly did his crime, media silence. No one cared. No one asked to look into his past, although I would say we were armed with every single reason to now look back at everything that this guy's published and to see if there were further crimes committed. There was no one talking about DEI hires. There was no white rage. There was no media outcry. There was no, how did this person get into this position? No one cared. In fact, he kept his job and he's still there now. He is still Professor William OReilly. Yeah, still occupying exactly the same role. And his victims were entirely discarded and ignored. He exercised a perfect execution of white privilege, white male privilege, and exactly why this case is what it is. It's a perfect parallel. It couldn't be more perfect because it's at the same institution. So we'll get into that. And I would like everybody after this live stream to hold William OReilly as a case study, to just throw out at the detractors, throw out at the liars, throw out at these people with their selective outrage. Oh my God, oh, he's awful. Oh, he's so incompetent. Oh, he's this, he's that. Is that okay? What about William OReilly? Have you tried to get him out of his position? Are you concerned? Let's see. Oh, it's been ruled. It's been ruled by Cambridge. He didn't commit the crime, but he did. We all know he committed the crime. They just ignored it. Okay, yeah, but regardless of that, it's let's move on. It's in the past now. It's in the past. Actually, no, it happened in 2024. So that's like a year after Professor Arday's appointment. So this happened more recently, by the way, more recently, and they don't want to acknowledge it. Oh, this is going to be a good one anyway. So today, what have I got in store? I wanted to start off with a little bit of an overview about Nathan Coffness, who I've mentioned on both live streams, and he's the individual who is responsible for this whole Jason Arday controversy kicking up, because essentially this guy is a horrible piece of work. He hates Black people. Yeah, that's very, very clear. He has his eugenicist outlook. He believes in scientific racism and the biological incapability of the Black race. And essentially, students at Cambridge, he also had a job at Cambridge, by the way, to be clear, also had a job at Cambridge. And the students signed a petition to get rid of him because they were like, this guy is not only practicing, but preaching open racism. And he too kept his job, or kept his position for a long stretch of time. So guys, you have to understand the parallels and the backstories here of involved individuals, non-involved individuals, but they're all here. The evidence that this is a race-based witch hunt is indisputable. And that's what we're going to uncover today. So let's start off with this article. We haven't got much in the way of videos, although we've got a couple, but this is going to be more of an article rich. I'm going to read you a few articles. We're going to get to know a few characters and build up a bit of a picture. I don't think it'll be a particularly long live stream, but anyone who knows me, those are normally my famous last words for a live stream that's going to go on entirely far too long. So let's read this together. So Cambridge professor at the Centre of Plagiarism Row defends his work. So this is just to give an overview, so everyone's kind of all caught up. Now, this article is 10 days old, but I don't think it matters. I think what it tells us is still quite relevant to what we're going to be discussing. So, a Cambridge University professor has defended his academic work after finding himself at the center of a plagiarism row. That's what it began as. It was just a plagiarism row to begin with. The row erupted after another academic, self-defined race realist, Nathan Coffness, was sacked from his Cambridge role in 2024, said he found numerous instances of plagiarism in Professor Jason Arday's work and questioned some of his stated achievements. Now, to be clear, Professor Jason Arday has been cleared of the plagiarism charges. He's been cleared on several fronts, both by Cambridge University, by Liverpool LMJU, the university that he actually got his PhD from, and by a panel of independent reviewers who are all PhD kind of supervisors who have the qualifications to do this. They've all cleared him. So he has been cleared. This isn't a question mark anymore, even though the media are reporting the plagiarism like it's still a major issue. It really is not. While some critics say the treatment of Arday, who is Black, has been motivated by racism, well, Nathan Koffner's involvement proves that it was motivated by racism. Others have said the claims of plagiarism were legitimate. They are wrong. Arday admitted errors in his work, which has been pointed out. If you were here on yesterday's live stream, even the people defending him say his work is somewhat substandard for a PhD, but that's not his fault. It just required a supervisor to mark his draft in order to improve it. But what actually ended up happening is that his draft level work ended up being what was submitted for his PhD. None of this being his fault. That's the fault of the supervisor at the university he was at. Arday admitted errors in his work, telling the Times in an interview on Saturday that he was accountable for those mistakes, but that what I am not is a liar. He told the newspaper, there has been, since I arrived at Cambridge, a very well orchestrated and coordinated campaign to unseat me from my position. Now, to many people, that's going to sound like a conspiracy theory, but I can tell you right now, as a Black British person, this is absolutely the case, and we have the evidence for this. Okay, there's no doubt, like literally people were livid that a Black person became the youngest professor in Cambridge, and they wanted to make it clear that this person does not deserve his role. And this is where the controversy does kick up, because could there have potentially been more kind of like academically astute individuals who were Black who could have taken that role? Oh, no doubt. But that doesn't matter. They chose him. And like I said yesterday, they chose him because of the breadth of his CV. It wasn't just the depth of his academic knowledge, although he was someone who was academically astute. He had done many things that people who will be in the comments later haven't done and will never do. Written PhD thesis, for instance, had his, his degree and his master's, etc., etc. So he had these things which proved that he was of an academic class. But on top of that, it's all the extra things that people can't deny. He was, a producer on a television show. He was very, very kind of like well sought after personality. He had raised money for charity. He had run marathons, although people raised disputes about the numbers, but they haven't done it with any kind of like credible accusation, haven't really proven him wrong. So there's all of these things in the backstory, but there's this definite attempt to unseat him from a position, this uncomfortability that his appointment gave to certain demographic in the UK. And Nathan Koffner is American, so he's just acting to type, really. He argued this was racially motivated and that he had become a lightning rod for criticism of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI policy, or EDI if we're talking about the UK. But you'll notice that everybody in the UK who kind of like clings on to those racial dog whistles are happy to use terms like woke and DEI, even though they don't apply in the UK at all. And that's normally proof that you're dealing with someone who's quite racist. Arday said some errors in his early academic work was because of his autism, which is a fair claim, as he relied on using mimicry to make sense of information, and that similar scrutiny would find similar errors in work by other academics. And this was also pointed out by Professor Kane Day Andrews. So saying, look, you do get this kind of duplication. There is a degree of flexibility when it comes to a piece of research, which is the length of a doctoral thesis. The issue here was with the referencing, and that's what's been agreed across the board. He didn't try to hide this individual's work. He cited that individual on multiple occasions. He just failed to cite them correctly on some occasions. Now, that's completely different to what Professor William OReilly did, which was completely steal the work of his students and try to pass it on as his own. But we'll come on to William OReilly later. We're talking about academia here. I didn't murder somebody. I think the cruelty that I've experienced and the position of me as this kind of liar and fantasist is totally unacceptable, he told the newspaper. And I thoroughly agree. This is a witch hunt, and it's a real character assassination of someone who actually, for all intents and purposes, comes across as a very pure-hearted and kind person, you know? In 2023, the then 37-year-old sociologist became the youngest ever Black professor in Cambridge, telling the BBC at the time his work focused on neurodivergence and race in education. He was diagnosed with autism and global development delay in his early years, to which his being unable to speak until the age of 11 and unable to read and write until 18 was attributed. Arday worked as a PE teacher before earning his doctorate at Liverpool John Moores University and going on to teach at Roehampton, Durham, and Glasgow. Okay, so this is an individual who we've already established is a neurodivergent, and yet none of the care, none of the thought is being given to how this might be affecting him mentally, to his disability. They're just like a savage bunch of like demons, like rabid dogs trying to tear him apart. And like I said, in the British media, we are very used to this kind of demonization. They don't stop until the person's dead. That's the British way when it comes to media. They literally do not stop until the person that they are harassing is dead. That's what they hope for Meghan Markle. That's what they hope for this individual. That's what they did to Princess Di. That's what they've done to many characters before, where they literally will harass them until that person is no longer with them. They're horrendous, horrendous people. And by the way, you can add Piers Morgan to that class. He's one of the kind of like originators of this harassment style of media, this harassment style of journalism. And this is one of the reasons why I hold a particular disdain for Piers Morgan, who's trying to reinvent himself now as some kind of, you know, egalitarian social commentator, the Wally. Let's carry on. Accusations of plagiarism in Arday's work were first voiced by Kofnus, a US researcher whose role at Cambridge College was terminated after backlash to his view that under a true meritocracy, Black people would, quote, disappear from almost all high-profile positions outside of sports and entertainment. No, he's not racist at all. He claimed on Substack that he had put Arday's work through a plagiarism detection software and found that many passages are lifted with minimal editing, sometimes retaining copy editing mistakes and from the original source. Now, bear in mind, whilst he was on this witch hunt of Arday, the William OReilly scandal would have popped up, in which case he could have employed these same techniques to numerous works that William OReilly had submitted. Let's check back on his doctoral thesis. Let's check back on his journal submissions to see what other students he's copied. But no one's done that. No one cares to do it. The media won't do it. These journalists won't do it. It doesn't quite have the same ring as bringing down the youngest professor who happens to be Black, does it? Kofnus reproduced several tracks of Arday's PhD dissertation, which he said had software, which he said the software had found to be copied verbatim or lightly rephrased from prior academic works by the authors. He also noted that a retired professor had previously raised concerns about Arday's subsequent academic articles, which led to 2 journals issuing correction notes. Now, to be clear, the way they phrased that is very misleading. The journals that issue correction notes did not pull his paper, and journals will be happy to pull papers that are found to be, you know, not academically sound. That's a part of the peer review process. Issuing correction notes is a part of the peer review process. So they're making it sound like it's something exceptional. You know, they were led to issue correction notes. No, that's not a big deal. It's kind of like, oh, he hasn't referenced here properly. Okay, here's an update. Sorry, guys, I didn't reference here properly. Here it is. And it's a part of an iterative approach to making journal papers published in academic journals, making sure that they reach a high academic standard, because they're not always perfect even upon submission. So that's all that is. No plagiarism has been cited by the journals, and no plagiarism has been cited in his PhD. So in spite of how this article is trying to phrase it, none of this stuff has been proven to be true. Kofnas also questioned Arday's claims that he ran 30 marathons in 35 days and 300 miles in 3 days for charity, which Arday said had raised more than 5 million for charity, as well as running 600 miles on a treadmill in 6 days. Now, listen to this next part because it's important. Arday told The Guardian that 5 million was raised with the help of others on over a 20-year period, but he said he could not name these people as he had signed a non-disclosure agreement. When asked about the 600 miles challenge, he said it was actually completed over a 12-day period to allow for rest days because of the cumulative wear and tear of training from previous challenges. So people have said, oh, 600 miles in 6 days is impossible, but you'll note the 600 miles was literally the running, which I still think is an amazing feat, but he had rest days in between those days in order to recoup his strength and his energy. Now, when you're young, your body is capable of such feats. A lot of people will say this is entirely impossible. He could not have done this, but most of them are going to be sitting on their sofa chomping on a dairy milk. Okay, most of them have never put themselves through any kind of physical exertion. Most professors in university are out of shape and have no intention on keeping themselves in the kind of shape that athletes do. So this is a whole different world to them. And once again, the big threat that they're feeling is that you have an individual who's doing something that seems really impossible, but they're also being held in the highest academic acclaim. That is a massive hole in Nathan Kofnas's entire existence. If you think about it, this guy, Nathan Kofnas, has dedicated his life to basically say black people are inferior to white people. Because let's just cut through the crap. That's what he's proposing. Yeah? Black people, yeah? Black people are inferior to white people. And then this guy comes along who's not only black, he's promoted to a higher position than Nathan Kofnas. He's promoted to a position of professor. In addition to that, he is also a physical specimen who's capable of athletic feats that this guy could never achieve in his life. So his entire thesis is being destroyed in just the existence of this one man. This one man simply existing makes him feel entirely insufficient. It makes his entire research, everything he's dedicated his life to is being destroyed in just the existence of this single individual. So he had to witch hunt this guy. He had to hate this guy. He had to prove that this guy was a farce. He had no choice. He had no choice. That's the bottom line, you know. Let me carry on. He told the Times that he stood by the other running records, okay, and he stood by that one as well. He wasn't changing it. It's just these guys, once again, they like to misquote him. And bear in mind, even though some of that stuff will sound crazy, I think talking to Professor Arday is important to gain the context, because these people like to pull things out of context and make it sound like he said something, and then you hear his own words and it's quite different what he said. So the only thing I'll say to you is, guys, don't jump to conclusions based on these media sound bites. The British media are consummate trolls. They are excellent. They are better than any other media around the world at completely twisting the most innocent things into sounding like they're the most heinous things. So just bear that in mind. Arday did not dispute the allegations of plagiarism, but defended him. Well, he's not going to dispute allegations of plagiarism, is he? They're there. So he can't, he's saying, defended himself by arguing that he had not received adequate supervision during his PhD, given his autism and learning disabilities, and that he could not afford a proofreader to catch mistakes when he started out in academia. And I'm sure he doesn't even need to say that, because who hires a proofreader? Yeah, many people don't do that. That's the job of a supervisor. So that was probably even then a question they asked that he simply responded to, and they're trying to make it sound like that's normal process. No, normal process is not that people hire proofreaders. Okay, maybe if you're there by nepotism and daddy's wallet, you can do that, but most people can't afford to do that. That's what you got a supervisor for. Let's carry on. The controversy has attracted a range of opinions, including the academic community. More than 12,000 people, including Green Party leader Zach Polanski, at least five Labour MPs and some Cambridge academics have signed a petition set up by the Good Law Project supporting Arday. Now, it's important for me to state some of these people have withdrawn their support since. I probably will do something in the future covering that and seeing why they've done that, because obviously that's going to be of interest to, you know, to the integrity of what we're discussing. Kehinde Andrews, professor of Black Studies at Birmingham University, said Arday was the victim of a smear campaign that was as predictable as it was baseless. While Alan Lester, a University of Sussex geography professor who specializes in colonialism, called it a non-story, and that's exactly what it is. Simon Baron Cohen, I wonder if he's related to Sacha Baron Cohen, who is Ali G, a cognitive neuroscientist and fellow at Trinity College, Cambridge, raised concerns about the impact the media coverage was having on Arday. We should, of course, always investigate plagiarism to protect academic standards, he wrote on Friday. However, I cannot stand by and watch when an autistic man is on the ground and the kicking continues. This is relentless bullying of a vulnerable autistic man and raises safeguarding issues. It's time to stop. Well, we're 10 days later. Have they stopped, or has the bullying increased? I think I'll allow you guys to answer that question. Everything has increased. This country doesn't care about the safeguarding or the protection. When you're Black, and I'm sure you guys in America understand this, when you're Black, you're not allowed full humanity. Okay, they very much dehumanize you when you're Black. Okay, they make it so that, you know, the life of an animal is worth more than the life of a Black person. However, it's the complete opposite when it's a white person who's committed a crime. When a white person committed a crime, straight away they're searching for any scraps of humanity. It doesn't matter what they've done. They could have, you know, they could have run up and unalived 100 people on a beach with a, and they'll be looking, oh, he was a troubled man. He had such a hard past growing up. Oh, his parents split up. Oh, his dad kept his inheritance and didn't part. Like, this is what they do. This is literally what they do. They humanize the most evil and heinous demons. And then when you've got people who are essentially good people, like Professor Arday, even if he has made errors, okay, and it's very possible that he's made errors along the way. He admits he's made some errors along the way. This is essentially a good person, and they've tried their best to literally demonize him. This is what they do. Some academics say there are questions over academic propriety. We've already said that that's the case. John Preston, a emeritus professor of sociology at the University of Essex, said there is a case to answer here. Mistakes happen. If sociology of education is ever to be a field with any credibility, we need to be able to point these out, correct them, and move on, he wrote, adding that there was no personal shame in making mistakes and admitting them, which I think has been the case where mistakes have been made. A Cambridge University spokesperson told the BBC it took allegations of academic misconduct seriously, but that it was standard practice that investigations were carried out by the institution at which the research was done, which has been done, and they've said there's no plagiarism. They added allegations of plagiarism regarding Professor Arday's thesis, and some of the journal publications have been investigated by Liverpool John Moores University and the journals in question. Okay, and all of these have come back and essentially said there's no impropriety. Let's move on now. So that was to introduce, obviously, overview everything that's taken place and introduce a little bit about Nathan Coffness. Now, I want to give you Nathan Coffness in his own words. So here's the vile individual who thinks that you are innately incapable of cogent and sustained thought. You know, this is the guy who thinks basically you're barely above the sentience of an ape. This is Nathan Coffness. Okay, so once again, you know my rule about these individuals. They will be a physically impaired specimen. That's normally what you'll get. You'll never get like a 6'6" Chad who's also intelligent and athletic, spouting, you know, scientific racism and, you know, white supremacy, because he doesn't need to, because he feels secure in himself. It's always these types, you know, he who probably, you know, probably single, probably miserable. Although I'm not gonna make that as an absolute claim, but I'm just making a guess based on looking at him, filled with hate, you know, fled from America, came to the UK, probably thought his American accent was going to land him someone special, but everybody has been grossed out by his vile personality. This is the kind he is. Yeah, we can literally see, Super Finger just said it, we can see how superior he is. Yes, oh Nathan, you are of the superior race. We are inferior to you. You are so intelligent. You are so much more of a human being than me, the vile black man. This pathetic individual. We'll start reading. Let me just give a quick shout out again to Kieran. Thank you very much for your donation, brother. I really appreciate it. He said, men like Nathan are usually cheaters who are trying to gatekeep the positions they didn't earn. He sees everything that he is not in this kid. Absolutely. It's a vile and very strong degree of jealousy, and anyone could see it. Okay. Anyone could see it. Appreciate your $5 donation, Nathan. I work in the philosophy of biology, very broadly construed, and ethics. That's very broadly construed as well. But anyway, and the intersection of these fields. I'm particularly interested. The fact that this guy works in ethics is revolting. Anyway, let's carry on. I'm particularly interested in scientific and ethical controversies connected with evolution-informed social science. So in other words, I'm a quack who believes in scientific racism and eugenics. Let's carry on. I aspire to do philosophy that is continuous with science. Most of my work deals with methodological issues at the border between science and philosophy, at the border between science and quackery, because he's a quack. And about half of my publications are in science journals. Currently, I am a postdoc in the Department of Philosophy and Moral Sciences at Ghent University. From 2022 to 2025, I was a leave-a-home early career fellow in the Faculty of Philosophy. This is interesting because he's a DEI himself, yeah? This is kind of like one of those grant guaranteed positions that you get after graduating, you know, guaranteed placements for people. Yeah, this is literally DEI program that he managed to get his employment from. Isn't that interesting? He's against DEI, but he's benefited from DEI, you know, with a very high paying job. Isn't that interesting about Nathan? One moment. Isn't that interesting about Nathan? Yes. Let's carry on. At the University of Cambridge. So this is when, so you can see that Professor Arday would have been employed during his time at Cambridge University, and I bet he was just frothing at the mouth when that occurred. Before that, I studied at Oxford, did a DPhil, which is your PhD basically, philosophy. Cambridge, he did his master's in philosophy, blah blah blah, whatever. People often assume I'm British. Yeah, that's because you're pasty and dry. But in fact, I was born in Chicago and grew up on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. In my third year in the UK, I once accidentally pronounced status, I think that's supposed to say status, as status, but otherwise, I have a New York accent. Wow, man, you are really witty as well. Lovely individual, this vile fellow. So anyway, I just wanted to introduce you to this character, okay, in his own words. Okay, let's carry on. So this is on the University of Cambridge's website. I just pulled this up. So this is a statement of disciplinary investigation, Dr. Kofnas. And this actually is just a few months old. So this was, well, actually it was last updated the 11th of December, but it was actually published on the 2nd of October, 2025. So let's read what it says. Statement of disciplinary investigation, Dr. Kofnas. Dr. Nathan Kofnas, let me zoom in. Let you guys experience some of this. Okay, there we go. There you go. You can read along now, or read ahead if I read too slow. Dr. Nathan Kofnas published a blog which provoked considerable controversy and prompted a significant number of complaints which the university, as his employer, was duty-bound to investigate. A rigorous inquiry concluded that his published views, while seen by many as offensive, did not breach the law and did not contravene university regulations designed to uphold free speech. So essentially, it's kind of like that whole American wave coming over to the UK. You're allowed to basically preach scientific racism, eugenics. Hey, it's free speech. Hey, it's free scientific inquiry. Okay. The university is committed to addressing racism, discrimination, and harassment. Well, it sounds like you've just contradicted yourself there, and strives to be a welcoming place to people from all backgrounds. At the same time, the university must secure and promote freedom of speech and provide an environment for open and sometimes robust debate. This can be a difficult path to navigate, particularly when arguments, while remaining within the law, cause deep offense, which obviously he is going to cause. All members of our community are encouraged to exercise their rights to freedom of speech, including to challenge ideas or theories they disagree with, even when it crosses over and contradicts the point that you made about racism, discrimination, and harassment. That is problematic. Yeah, that is problematic. So have you noticed how the people who should be crying about freedom of speech the most, yeah, such as, you know, ethnic minorities, people who are being oppressed. Have you noticed the people who cry about free speech the most are the ones who are doing the most oppressing? Have you guys noticed that? So the people who are constantly crying about free speech the most are the ones doing the oppressing. And have you also noticed how these white male, I'm going to say conservatives, because I'm sure, in fact, I'm going to show you the video of a good white male who's not like them. But have you noticed how these white males, conservatives, are only concerned with using their freedom of speech to abuse others? So that's all they want. It's always like they're moaning about political correctness. Well, if I want to say Negro, I want to say Negro. It's always like there's always a victim to your freedom of speech. Like that's all they want freedom of speech for. I want to be able to call this group lesser, that group lesser. Have you noticed how their freedom of speech is never liberating? It's never like I want the freedom to express something positive. It's always negative. It's always an attack. All they do, and this is why no one takes white power seriously, and they call that oppression as well. Let me tell you something right now. If you're on here and you wonder, why can't I say white power and white pride, and yet black people can say black power, black pride, brown people can say brown power, brown pride, etc. Why can't white people say it? Because historically, for the historically literate, in the 250 to 300 years that race has been a significant thing as in our existence as human beings, white power and white pride has never been expressed exclusively of aggression, anger, unalivings, genocides against minorities. That's how you express it. Yeah, historically, that's how you express it. Presently, you never express it within building your community. If you go to anyone saying black power, black pride, what you'll find is they're doing some kind of event, they're building community centers, they're doing like musicals, some, you know, they're just doing something to get everybody gathered around and galvanize something. You know, if you go for brown power, brown pride, they're doing the same thing. You know, it might have a little reggaeton concert or so, I don't know, I'm being stereotypical now, but you get the idea. Everybody else is able to do it and take pride in what they do. Asian pride is the same thing, but white pride, hate. So don't blame us for that. White pride equals hate. That's a historic fact. It's got nothing to do with white culture. It's got nothing to do with gathering around white-eyed. It's to do with hating other people. It's all white pride has ever done. And that's why when people say white pride, it's seen as racist. Because it is. It never has not been. Okay, that's the issue with white pride. Okay, I can spell that out for you if you need me to as well. Let's move on from this article. So, oh, we've done this one already. So let's just quickly have a very brief read of this article, okay, which gives you a little bit more insight into this Nathan Kovnas fellow. We are going to be moving on to William OReilly shortly, but I want to just read this to you. So race realist, by the way, that term, race realist, I always reserve it. I always reverse it, okay? It's not race realist. It's real racist. That's what that's what the also. When you see race realist, just reverse it. It actually means real racist. Okay, that's what these people are. Real racist fellow Nathan Kovnas launches legal challenge over dismissal. The philosophy fellow has claimed the college did not have the authority to cut ties with him. Let's zoom in again and have a quick brief read. We're only going to read a few paragraphs of this article because it will irritate you. Race realist fellow Nathan Kovnas is suing Emmanuel College after being fired for claiming that a meritocracy would see the number of Black professors at Harvard drop to almost zero. Okay. Kovnas, who was hired by the philosophy faculty in 2022, has launched a legal challenge over the college's decision to cut ties with him after his views were deemed to be a rejection of diversity, equality, and inclusion. This should be equity if it's America, equality if it's England, but it should be EDI then. Anyway, diversity, equality, and inclusion that was incompatible with the college's core values and missions. He originally sparked controversy in February after claiming in a blog post that race was linked to academic ability and that under a true meritocracy, Black people would disappear from almost all high-profile positions outside of sports and entertainment. He also called for an end, listen to this part, guys. He also called for an end to the war on nature. War so this guy's going right back. Yeah, he's like going he's like Darwin. This is like Darwin, you know, was it Darwin's book about the species, whatever it is? Yeah, he's going right back there. Like he's going to really to the crux of like real 19th century scientific racism here. The war on nature, claiming that people needed to accept that talent is not distributed equally within or across groups. So this guy's just a blatant, outright racist. And here's the thing that really bothers me about people like this. As much as this guy might be a complete and utter shill, and he might have lied about all of his, like in terms, he could have tricked his way into all of those qualifications. I refuse to believe that. So I actually believe that if this guy follows scientific process, he's probably quite intelligent. And anyone with a modicum of intelligence about these matters of kind of like intelligence across ethnic groups and races. First of all, as a white man, unless he's in complete denial, he knows you can just find, I mean, like, respectfully, I live in the UK. I just need to go to certain parts of the UK and you can just find limitless stupid people. Yeah. It's not like everyone from the UK looks like central London and these certain hub city points, you know, like a broad swath of the UK, you get incredibly simple people. And I don't mean that in a rude way. That is just the reality. You can go to certain, like go to Bedford city centre, usually. Like I could write a list of areas for you to go to where you won't meet anybody who's particularly bright. Yeah. So he knows that exists. Yeah. Anyone, you know, who has any kind of level of integrity knows that there is a correlation between kind of like basic socioeconomics in an area and academic performance and kind of general intelligence. There does seem to be like there is that correlation. It's indisputable. Where people are deprived, the intelligence is, you know, you've got to struggle more. Where's there's affluence, you've got to find people who are incredibly intelligent. So he knows this. And as someone, and I mean this in the most respectful way, that's Nigerian, I've always known that these kind of like intelligence arguments are stupid because, like, respectfully, if you like, I'm going to say something very controversial here. I know for a fact the average, if you know, was to put the average Nigerian, yeah, got to be careful with this. In fact, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. You can read between the lines, whatever. But I've always known it's kind of like, okay, guys, if it makes you feel better to say that you've got a baseline higher level of intelligence, you believe that about yourself. But I know the truth to be something completely different. I can't speak on other ethnic groups and other things, but I can say quite comfortably, I know that not to be the case. Now, making these arguments about baseline intelligence are entirely stupid and asinine, and only stupid and asinine people should be making those arguments. Someone as intelligent as him would know that this nuance exists. He knows that there are incredibly intelligent Black people and incredibly stupid Black people. He knows there are incredibly intelligent white people, incredibly stupid white people. He knows that these patterns exist across the board. And yet the fact that he continues to try to build sciences around this, build studies around this kind of like race specificity shows that he has no integrity. That's what the issue is. Yeah. He has no integrity. That's what the issue is. This guy is really, that's someone who is really poisoned in the heart because they're denying what they know to be true, and they're pushing something that they know is going to be lapped up by people who won't be able to process that kind of information without being violent, without being vile, without being aggressive, without, you know, closing the door to people. So he's a very evil and nefarious individual. That's the point that I'm saying. Okay. Kovness is characterized as, I mean, I'm going to just post this comment here, and I don't mean this in the rude way. Yeah. I'm going to substantiate this. So Obsidian Kitty said, Nigerian kids are constantly winning international awards in mathematics. Absolutely true. In addition to that, if you just do a hunt through the media, you'll know that all of the youngest people, in terms of like attending universities, breaking records and that, they're always Nigerian. Now, we're such a tiny, tiny proportion of the UK's population. That shouldn't be the case. Okay. But it is the case. So, and am I saying that's the absolute norm when it comes to that? Absolutely, it's not the norm. But the point is, you can't make a biological argument when it's contradicted on so many fronts. For England, yeah, which has, you know, let's say in and around, always been in and around 90% a white population. That white English population rarely ever occupies any of the stats for those kind of like really like performers, those really top performers. Those really top performers always tend to be foreigners. Okay, breaking the stats, going to university, youngest university student, youngest this, youngest that, youngest PhD. None of these positions are occupied by white Brits. So anyone could turn around and say, well, guys, if you're 90% of the population and you are the socio-economic dominant, why are you so average? Anyone could make that argument. Now, I wouldn't make that argument, because it's not an argument that we need to have. This is why people avoid topics like this. So you can load data in your favor to say one thing or another thing, but I think you just avoid the topic altogether, because ultimately it's not a constructive topic to have, you know, and this is why institutions don't want to have these topics. Okay. Kovner says, characterize his views as real racism, and advocates for the preservation of racial distinctions in society. He also stated that society should blaze forward in a hereditarian revolution against the DEI devil. And this is what really irritates me, is this dude is from America, man. Like, go back to where you're from. We've got so many Americans poisoning the well in the UK at the moment. And I know UK people, like, policy is bad enough, but it really has gotten worse over the last 20 years. And a lot of that has been driven by American ideologies being really driven in the UK. So the police have gotten worse, the rhetoric's gotten worse, education's gotten worse, because all these vile, nasty, you know, dripping in KKK ideology Americans are now occupying senior positions in UK police, UK Parliament, UK, you know, and it's everywhere, and it's really making it a horrible place to live. But anyway, so that's him in a nutshell. So now we should be clear, Nathan Kovness, his involvement, who he is, what he believes. Okay. Now I'm going to play you this video. In fact, let me play this video next. So this video now, okay, I found it today. I'm only going to play the intro, which is about a minute long, but I want to see you. Forgive me, guys, it's hot in here. I want to show you how they're weaponizing this entire Jason Arday debate. Okay, so I want you to just listen to this. We're not going to listen to it, but I'm going to just play a few seconds of this for you guys. Can you not hear it? Give me a 2 if you can't hear it. Give me a 1 if, oh, no sound. Okay, let me start again. Sorry about that, guys. Cool. No worries, guys. I'll start again. Remove. Stop screen. Okay, I'm starting again, guys. Give me a sec. Thanks for the heads up, guys. I should have asked for 1 and a 2. 1s and a 2s. All right, let's get back on and make sure our audio is there this time. All right, we're bringing it back. We're bringing it back, guys. Don't worry. We're bringing it back. I got you. Okay, let's go.
Jason Arday was anointed as the youngest black professor in British history at an Oxbridge University, so Cambridge University. This would have been remarkable enough in and of itself. Arday also claimed that he had been non-verbal until the age of 11 because of his severe autism.
This man is unbelievable.
And then a man called Nathan Coffness writes a blog which lays out quite clearly how Arday has plagiarized his PhD thesis.
Would that the same thing have happened to a white person?
Oh no, I mean, it's very hard to get into Cambridge at any level as a white person. I mean, this man's, okay, just go back a bit. His first degree from Roehampton was in physical education. And somehow he's done this series of trampoline vaults over the institutions. And effectively, you know, it's a form of laundering.
Now, I don't have any skill, but what I do have is an indomitable will.
They're willing to throw away the legitimacy of the entire legacy, the whole system of Cambridge, because this man is black. Is race infected their brain to that extent?
They're going to get what they deserve. You realize that the West and the Enlightenment and all the traditions that we built, bled for, died for, you realize that your generation is killing them.
I think that
Always ends in violence with white men. Yeah, always ends in violence. They can never have this kind of discussion. Always violence. It's gonna end badly for them. You wait till I arm my daughters and my sons. We're gonna take the capital and we're gonna make sure that this never happens again. Like this, there's always violence. There's something not screwed in right. So the reason I showed you that clip, guys, is because I wanted to show you how they're weaponizing this debate. They actually had the temerity to say, if this was a white man, would this have happened? And I thought, when they said, if this was a white man, would this have happened? I thought the response was going to be, well, of course, no one would have looked into them like, if this is a white man, he would have probably gotten away with it, but he's not white. But they're actually like, no, he wouldn't have got the position. It's impossible. They don't employ white people. He actually said, there's barely any white people in Cambridge. What are you talking about? What is he talking about? These people are weird. Like, they're so bizarre. They're literally so bizarre. I know you guys hate that, yeah? But you must have hated that as much as I did. But I'm just gonna bring it back because obviously we're gonna watch the rest of this crap, yeah? But let's just like listen to the cope of these people and listen to how sadistic they are, yeah?
Jason Arday was anointed as the youngest black professor in British history at an Oxbridge University, so Cambridge University. This would have been remarkable enough in and of itself. Arday also claimed...
Laughing, okay? Laughing, belly aching as much as black. Hired at the Cambridge. Oh, he must have been given that. Oh my God. Let's carry on.
That he had been non-verbal until the age of 11 because of his severe autism.
I mean, they're laughing at the fact that he was autistic and non-verbal to 11. That's not something that's been disproven in any, apart from that silly idiot who's released those Instagrams, but no one's disproven that, okay? He is autistic. I mean, it's like, you can kind of pick up on that kind of like, he's high functioning. So it's what it would have been previously called Asperger's, okay? So it's high functioning, but you can pick up on that if you're kind of like exposed to it. So you can pick up on the kind of like the slight social awkwardness of it. The fact that they're laughing shows they have no respect. Okay, but anyway, let's carry on.
Man, it's unbelievable.
And then a man called Nathan Coffness writes a blog which lays out quite clearly how Arday has plagiarized his PhD thesis.
A man called Nathan Coffness really came, and we've seen what Nathan Coffness is. Nathan Coffness is not just a man, he's a racist, okay? A eugenicist called Nathan Coffness, who believes black people are insufficient, raised concerns about plagiarism in his PhD thesis, which have since been proven to be false. Obviously, they'll never give you that, they'll never give you that full picture, okay? They'll never give you that context. What they're trying to do is mock, okay?
Would that the same thing have happened to a white person?
Look at this victim with the would the same thing have happened to a white person? You know, because I'm just thinking that, you know, I go to universities all the time and all the professors are black. And I'm just wondering what would the same thing have happened to a white person? It's called Thursday, mate. Yeah, it's called Thursday. Yeah, you're looking for, would the same thing happen? We call that Thursday over here. Yeah, that's how often white people are given the chance, given the opportunity to take positions that they haven't earned. Yeah, that's what we call it. What the heck is this guy talking about?
Oh no, I mean, it's very hard to get into Cambridge at any level.
Yes, we know it's hard to get into Cambridge, but that hasn't stopped it from being a predominantly white institution, which is what you're failing to relay. Oh no, you know, I look at Cambridge's cohort, and it's like sometimes it looks like center of Bangladesh. You just don't see anybody. You know, you could think you're in Lagos or something. It's like no, said nobody ever. Yeah, said nobody ever. It's a predominantly white institution. And they're worried about, they are the purveyors of misinformation.
As a white person, I mean, this man's, okay, just go back a bit. His first degree from Roehampton was in physical education.
Yes, but that wasn't his last degree. Okay, notice that. So is there something wrong with taking a degree in physical education? There are several routes to a PhD. Okay, there are multiple routes to a PhD. There's not a problem with his first one being in physical education.
And somehow he's done this series of trampoline vaults over the institutions.
Okay, it's not called trampoline vaults, sir. It's called, he's gained additional qualifications and built up to a PhD. That's what we call it. We don't call it trampoline vaults in academia. Yeah. Notice, and by the way, the reason I'm nitpicking is because this loaded language is exactly, someone used the phrase poison in the well. This kind of loaded language is exactly how they poison the well and convince everybody. Everybody watches a video like this, and at the end of it, they're so convinced that Jason Arday is this absolute demon. They're so convinced of it, and all they've listened to is propaganda, opinion, jealousy, and hate. They haven't actually heard anything, you know. Oh, Sibney and Kitty, you know what time it is.
Effectively, you know, it's a form of laundering.
Now,
it's a form of laundering to get additional qualifications. So it's laundering because he started with a PE degree. Because he started with a degree in PE, it is now laundering that he built himself up to a PhD. Can you hear this? Like this is totally unqualified kinds of accusations. This is not in any way, shape, or form scholarly or fair. This is just like complete demonization.
I don't have any skill, but what I do have is an indomitable will.
And notice how they take that clip out of context, because I'm sure he wasn't saying, I don't have any skill in anything. But they don't care. They just needed the clip to make sure it sounds like he's saying, I'm a complete thicko, but I just got the job because I turned up one day and they thought, superb, mate, you can walk in. And so I walked in, but I'm still struggling to read at a 3rd grade level. Like that's not what he's saying here. These people have got no integrity.
Willing to throw away the legitimacy of the entire legacy, the whole system of Cambridge, because this man is black.
These Americans are so concerned with the system of Cambridge.
Is race infected their brain to that extent? They're going to get what they deserve.
Anyway, and we'll end off with some violence, some good old white male aggression to end it off. Okay, we get the picture there. All right, no need to watch these two twats twattle on anymore. Let's close this down. I do want to read one comment. It was quite a nice comment, and sometimes I do keep my left eye on one of my eyes in the chat. But I want to shout out Marcus MD. Shout out to you. He said your analysis. It's a bit of a glaze, self-glaze. I don't care. It's a nice comment, and I always react to the mean comments, so I should react to the nice ones as well. Your analysis are on point. Many channels, not many channels are this accurate. Very few videos on YouTube nowadays are worth time, but your channel delivers quality consistently. I'm impressed. I wish you success. Shout out, Marcus. I appreciate that feedback. That goes to that really does encourage me. So thank you very much for that positive feedback. Okay, we're moving on from angry white males now, and we're going to move on to a good white male over here, okay, who gives a nice little overview of the entire Nathan Arday thing. I don't think this video requires me to interrupt at all. Prior warning, he's a bit camp. Okay, it is what it is, yeah. But that's his channel style. It's quite entertaining, but it's nice to hear a balanced review of what's taken place. So we're gonna watch this once, and then we're gonna dive into, to end off, we're gonna look at William OReilly, our criminal, our villain of the day. Okay, and yeah, let's do that together now. So let me just quickly clip play.
So you don't know why the resignation of this Cambridge University professor called Jason Arday has been making front page headlines for the last week, but you don't want to look like a thicky dum-dum in front of all your mates. Here's a quick rundown before you become a casualty on the front line of the culture wars as well. So in 2023, Jason Arday was appointed Professor of Sociology of Education of the University of Cambridge, making him the youngest black professor at the University of Cambridge at the age of 37. All the more impressive because Arday wasn't able to speak until he was 11 due to the fact he has autism and global developmental delay. Now, Jason Arday resigned his position on Wednesday after facing allegations of plagiarism detailed in a blog written by a potential evil succubus by the name of Nathan Kofnas. Now, Kofnas, who describes himself as a race realist, also used to be an academic at the University of Cambridge, but lost his job in 2024 after saying that in a true meritocracy, there would be no black professors at Harvard, meaning Kofnas has officially lost 2 sets of pupils in his life, the ones he was teaching at Cambridge and the ones in his fucking eyes. Now, Jason Arday has said that his resignation should not be interpreted as him accepting the accusations of plagiarism, but he has admitted to making some mistakes in his early works. This has led people to question other elements of Arday's backstory, including his claim that he's raised £5.5 million for charity and run 600 miles in 6 days. But genuinely, this is not the real story. The real story is how the very serious allegations against Jason Arday are being presented as a gotcha moment by the right-wing press and far-right groups who believe that DEI is the only reason that black people get into positions of power. In fact, a group of Cambridge academics are now demanding an independent investigation into the process by which Jason Arday was appointed to the very senior position of professor at such a young age when it's possible his work wasn't up to scratch. What this possibly indicates is that Cambridge University used Jason Arday as a hot new glitzy appointment, and to use him as an emblem to show how successful the university had been in opening up the institution to marginalised groups, allowing them to do absolutely fuck all else to open up their institution to marginalised groups. Basically, there are 2 reasons why this case is uncomfortable. The first reason is that it's possible that Cambridge University appointed Jason Arday to a senior position so that they could use him as a diversity poster boy, knowing full well that they hadn't conducted a thorough review to know whether his work was good enough to warrant that position. The second reason is that the appointment of Jason Arday is being used by the right-wing media, who are incapable of understanding any kind of nuance, to peddle the racist notion that the only reason black people get appointed into positions of power is because of DEI, a dangerous and totally untruthful position that Cambridge University are now partly responsible for bolstering amongst the right wing. The thing is, though, even if Jason Arday is found guilty of plagiarising his work and lying about his 600-mile runs, the truth is he's being treated way worse than a white person would be in exactly the same position. How do I know? Because there are white people in exactly the same position, such as William OReilly. There's some funny-looking people at Cambridge, aren't there? Now, William was found guilty of stealing whole passages from his students in 2023. And guess what? He's still in post with not a single front-page headline to his name. Because when a white person fails, they're treated as a flawed individual. But when a black person fails, they're used to undermine the entire notion that black people should be in positions of power. So you don't know why the...
So there you go. I didn't want to interrupt it because I think he does a very good job at overviewing the whole situation. And I wanted to allow it to play through. So shout out Mr. Cody Dala. I appreciate that breakdown. I appreciate your ability to be objective in your perspective on that. I think that's the way it should be. Now we're going to get into this fellow, okay? Dr. William OReilly. Now he's going to be what I was going to say an unfortunate kind of like a victim, but actually he's actually a heinous criminal. So I actually don't care, because first of all, I was going to be like, well, I'm coming for him because they came for Jason. But in reality, this guy's a heinous individual and the kind of like privileged toff who basically, you know, abuses their position and knows they're going to get away with it because, hey, it's a world and it's a white man's world. So let's check. University of Cambridge Faculty of History. This is on the university's website. This is Dr. William OReilly. I want you to be familiar with the face. Associate Professor, Early Modern History. Steering Group member, Center for Study of Global Human. I'm sure it says history is behind his head now. So there he is. Get used to his face, okay? Let's look at some of his qualities. Always written here. I completed my MST and DPhil in history at the University of Oxford after studying for my BA in history and German at University College Galway. I was a lecturer in history at the National University of Ireland, go away until 2004, when I came to Cambridge as a research fellow at the Centre for History and Economics, joining the Faculty of History as lecturer in early modern history in 2005. Since that time, I've been senior fellow at the Institute of Advanced Study, Budapest, fellow at the Weatherhead Centre for International Affairs, Harvard University, visiting fellow at Hungarian Academy of Sciences in Budapest and at the Austrian Academy of Sciences in Vienna, a DAAD fellow or DAAD fellow at the University of Hamburg, and Erasmus lecturer at the Karl Franzen University in Graz. I mean, it's quite a CV he's got here. In 2017, I was appointed the first full-time fellow at the Institute of Advanced Study, Budapest. In 2018, I was appointed Leibniz Honorary Professor of History at the German National Maritime Institute. So he has quite a CV there. I don't think anyone's going to deny that. But let's see if the praise is warranted for this individual. So, the theft of ideas from young researchers. So this is where we get to learn about Dr. William OReilly. And on the screen, you can see a couple of screenshots showing basically word for word copy and pastes. And here's the nefarious thing. In fact, I'm not even going to overview this. Let's read this article together because this gets really bad really quickly. The story of plagiarism at UK universities is a familiar one. Senior scholars are protected regardless of the consequences for junior scholars whose work is stolen. So imagine the very people that you are entrusting, the only other people who get to see your work, and they're aware of that for the period of time, exploit that trust to profit and to build their own profile. Absolutely vile. This is not a victimless crime. Real and lasting harm can be done to the careers of young researchers. Dr. William OReilly is a associate professor in early modern history at Cambridge University, as reported in the Financial Times and Varsity. Dr. OReilly included large portions of 2 essays by one of his undergraduate students in an article published in the Journal of Austrian American History. So he had these published. This is one like some internal newsletter. This was published in a global journal. The paper, Frederick Jackson Turner's Frontier Thesis, Orientalism and Austrian blah, 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 appeared in 2018 under Dr. OReilly's name only. So he didn't even mention them as fellow researchers. When the student later discovered this, so it took the student to discover this in 2021. Imagine that it's the student who discovered it 3 years later. He contacted Cambridge University and they launched an investigation. So think about, just as we kind of pause through the story, think about the massive song and dance that's been made about the fact that Dr. Arday may have plagiarized, probably accidentally, another paper by not referencing correctly, which he referenced, but he didn't reference correctly at that point for his PhD thesis, versus this guy who's literally stealing the work of his students directly from their papers, putting it into his own work and passing it off as his own and not giving any credit. This is theft, and he is directly profiting. So in a fair world, guys, just out of a question for the audience, feel free to spam my chat with answers. In a fair world, given what's happened to Dr. Arday, what should the response from the general public have been when this was discovered? Feel free to fill up my chat. What do you think the public should have done? Okay, you've been caught plagiarizing a student. If we're in a fair world and we're replicating the behavior that we're seeing with Dr. Arday, what should have happened? Okay, he should be fired. His name should be all over the news. Yes. What else should have happened? Someone tell me what else should have happened if we're being fair, considering what's happening right now to Dr. Arday. Someone tell me what should have happened. And One Love Soul, you just made a very, very good point. The whole framework of Western civilization is a work of plagiarism. You're spot on. Okay. It's not cheating when white people do it. Also true. But what should have happened? What should we be looking at right now? Revoke his credibility, good. But what should we be looking at, guys? I need an answer on this. What should we be looking at? Exposed, stripped of professorship, yes. Okay, that's yep. But what should we be looking at? No one's giving me the answer yet. Reprimanded by university, yes. I'm still waiting for the answer, guys. What should we be looking at? Thank you. Kieran's giving me it. And that's what I was looking for, okay? Right now, if this was a fair world, okay, and then we're living in a true meritocracy, okay, and it's not about wokeness, we should be reviewing all of his previous work, because we truly do not know how much of this work this guy's actually submitted is his own. He's proven, I mean, it takes a certain degree of temerity to copy your students. That's like, whoa, you've actually gone to another. So this is someone who probably has a track record of copying, and pasting. Know what the difference is here, guys? Black people, as we are used to, are scrutinized under a microscope for the entirety of our existence in a place where white people don't think we should be. White people have no scrutiny. Just like in the workplace, you can have a white MD, a white manager, you can miss their targets year and year and year and year and stay in a position. Okay. You can have a black guy and he can oversleep on a Monday because he had a heavy weekend, come into work late and be late on the Monday and be fired on the Tuesday. Okay. This is the difference between the two worlds. Yeah. We are observed obsessively. And the attempt is always to see how quickly they can trip us up, versus these guys, they can get away with literal murder. Anyway, thank you guys for answering that. Let's carry on. Those familiar with university investigations will not be too surprised at the outcome. 2 years later, a tribunal of scholars at Cambridge University decided this was not plagiarism, but the product of negligent acts. Nonetheless, the Journal of Austrian American History did behave honorably. It correctly retracted the article as the material was presented without credit. Now, here's a massive difference that I want to note to you. None of Dr. Arday's articles that have been accused of plagiarism have been retracted by the journal. And I made this point earlier today when I was on a call on a podcast. And I said, if he was found to be plagiarizing, it's in the journal's interest and their reputation to make sure that's the case. Notice how they are saying with chest, everybody's saying it. He plagiarized, but the journals haven't retracted his papers. The Liverpool John Moores University have not said that he plagiarized. And there's a reason for that. It's not like they haven't seen plagiarism before. They have nothing to protect here, but they're like, no, we've looked at it and it's not plagiarism. You're making it up or you're just getting it wrong. But when there is a clear-cut case of plagiarism, they will remove your article from a journal, which is what took place. So this is the difference, guys, to be clear. Dr. OReilly did not dispute that uncredited material was included. Well, of course he did dispute it, the fligging thief. His former undergraduate, whose work he stole, did not receive an apology, vile, from the university. He said that he was baffled at the conclusion. He was not only baffled, the verdict was received with widespread incredulity. Imagine that. Unfortunately, further plagiarism allegations against Dr. OReilly have now come to light, reported in Varsity. 3 journal articles by OReilly published between 2006 and 2016, that's 10 years, contain sections of word-for-word overlap with uncredited sources. Guys, this guy is a serial plagiarizer. His entire career should be in the dirt. There should be scandal. Every single channel, Telegraph, Times, Guardians, all of these people who have gone crazy over Dr. Arday. This is a much juicier article. This is a much juicier case. This is not something that happened ages ago. This happened in 2024. Everybody should be all over this. Why is no one talking about it? Why does no one know this guy's name? Because he's white. So for all of you claiming, oh, it's got nothing to do with race, he's just incompetent, this, that, and the other. This guy is a thief. We can't even call him incompetent because we don't even know how much of his work is really his own. He's a serial thief and he's submitting his theft to journals for credit and to gain higher positions, to be invited to speak. This actually is fraud because there's a financial benefit to what he's doing, and yet this guy is not being called out for the criminal that he is. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? For example, Dr. OReilly 2011 article on movement of peoples in the Atlantic world 1450 to 1850 contains material lifted almost directly from a 1995 article by Michael Heffernan. Right panel, OReilly did not cite Heffernan at all. The image comes from PubBeer, who gives more examples. So guys, the fact that people are finding these randomly by doing random searches, imagine how much this guy's copied that has literally gone completely unanswerable. Imagine that, guys. This is absolutely atrocious. Dr. Magdalene Connolly was an MPhil and PhD student, then Leverhulme Early Career Fellow. So she was on that same same DEI program that Nathan Coffness was on at Cambridge University's Faculty of Asian and Middle Eastern Studies. As this early career fellowship came to a close, she was offered a Humboldt Fellowship in Germany, which ended in May 2024. She had all the ingredients for a successful long-term academic career. Now she has sadly exited academia and has serious health problems caused by stress and anxiety. What went wrong? Dr. Connolly had some novel ideas on Judeo-Arabic text. They were appropriated by a more senior scholar. In 2020, Dr. Connolly submitted a formal complaint to Cambridge University. She hoped that the matter might be dealt with quickly and a mutual acceptable outcome obtained. Let's see what the outcome was. I'm sure you guys know. Instead, it was the start of a lengthy 4-year battle during which Dr. Connolly had to dedicate substantial parts of her time and energy to ensure the matter was dealt with fairly. The university set up an investigation, but the investigators either had conflicts of interest or lacked the necessary expertise to decide the matter, speaking neither Arabic nor Hebrew. At every turn, there were long delays. At every turn, the senior scholar argued that it was not Dr. Connolly who had come up with the new idea, so they're lying about origination. And at every turn, the senior scholar was given the benefit of the doubt, despite examples of poor academic practice. How many people want to guess who thinks the senior scholar was a white male? Raise hands now. Who thinks the senior scholar in this case was a white male? Just out of interest. So what we're seeing here, guys, is a pattern of behavior amongst white males in Cambridge University, provable plagiarism, abuse and theft of other people's works, 0 consequences, versus Dr. Arday has done a sound job in Cambridge University, never been accused of such things, and yet his past is being drugged up, his papers are being drugged up, they're being given the green light, given a tick by the journals, who they then say, oh, the journals are just woke. The journals, oh, well, okay, pulling these guys' papers. Can you see here, guys? This is not even like equivalent. These guys are orders of magnitude worse, and they get no media treatment. This is why I will not condemn a damn thing that Dr. Arday has done. People are like, oh, bro, you got to be balanced. I am balanced. This is the balance. The balance is, when these guys get dealt with, the same way Dr. Arday is getting dealt with, then come to my channel to hear words of condemnation about, and then I'll be going through with a fine-tooth comb his PhD thesis and comparing it. Right now, I'm not even interested, because look at the shit these people get away with. It's not even comparable. Stop wasting your energy, guys. We do not live in a meritocracy. We don't live in a meritocracy. We don't need black people and black minds going to see, oh, well, actually, I just want to see if Dr. Arday's actually done the due diligence and blah, 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 blah. And you think you're being so flipping forward thinking. You're not. You're a tool. Because these guys don't even investigate when they do worse crimes. No one even cares. If you were about that business, if you're black and you're about that business, you're like, actually, I just want to hold us to account, make sure we hold to the standards. Research Dr. OReilly first. Yeah? Research William OReilly first. Come back with a nice body of records of his plagiarism. Publish that, do videos about that, do research about that. After you've done that, then come and start to talk to me about Jonathan Arday. But if you're going straight to Jonathan Arday, you're simply a tool of the media. End of discussion. That's all there is to it. Let's carry on. The university produced a report in 2022 that exonerated the actions of the senior scholar, surprise, surprise, despite the length of time that it had taken. The many failings of the investigation were not addressed. Dr. Connolly then appealed. This took more time. A new committee of scholars, fully independent and with the relevant expertise in Arabic and Hebrew, was assembled. It contained professors external to the university. They reported in 2024, finally confirming the truth of what Dr. Connolly had maintained all along, that acts of plagiarism had indeed taken place. The whole process took 4 years, but by then it was too late. The energy that Dr. Connolly had to redirect away from her scholarship to fight in the case had big impact on her ability to produce new work and on her health. Her research output declined. When she applied for new position in 2023, as her Humboldt fellowship drew to a close, she found it difficult. She was even told that some professors would not be willing to write her a reference, as she was no longer invited to speak at events related to her field. This all too familiar pattern of victim blaming. How many can relate? Yeah. The upsetting thing in these two cases is not that the senior academic cheated. Sadly, that is not uncommon. Once again, the upsetting thing, I'm going to just highlight this, guys. In fact, I'm going to highlight the part that's important. The upsetting thing in these two cases is not that the senior academic cheated. Sadly, that is not uncommon. It's funny how the general public doesn't know that, though, isn't it? Isn't it funny how the general public doesn't know that? The upsetting thing is that universities defend the senior scholar and completely ignore any effects on more junior victim. Now, here's what's really interesting. The newspapers have been highlighting the possibility, and I don't think this is true, I think they're just making this up, that a group of students or students are getting together to sue Cambridge University because Professor Arday was incompetent. By the way, none of this is founded in anything. He done his job really well, which is why he kept his position. Okay, there's no evidence that he was in any way insufficient to do his role. He done his role really well. But notice how the newspapers are like, oh yes, the students should sue. Like you'll hear people in the comments, oh, they should sue him all. Like he's an idiot, like he's a dum-dum. No, he's none of these things. He did his job well. Your plagiarism claims were unfounded. None of this is found. But it's funny how they don't care about the students that actually did sue the university. It's funny how they don't care about the other professors and fellows who actually did have to sue these senior white men who get away with murder. Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny how this kind of energy is only ever directed towards outsiders, the out group? The in group is always can operate with complete impunity when it comes to their behavior. Allegations of plagiarism, if proven, would have a serious effect on any academic careers. Well, then don't do it. As well as damaging the reputation of the university. So universities instinctively side with senior scholar who has normally done the plagiarizing. Now, this is disgusting, guys. And this guy is still sitting pretty in his role, and he's probably going to, you know, retire soon to a very hefty paycheck. This is the Varsity article. So we just get a little bit more, and we're going to wrap this up soon. Okay, plagiarizing professor stays in post and threatens student journalists. So this guy just gets better and better. Let's read more about Dr. William OReilly. More than 12 pages of an article published under O'Reilly's name had been lifted almost word for word. 12 freaking pages of an article. This is not a dissertation. How long was the article? Is probably 14 pages long. And he's lifted 12 of them word for word. This guy is a flipping disease. Yeah, he's a disease. Let's carry on. Sorry, word for word from 2 essays by one of his students. So he's like, I like the way the student writes, and he's collated the two essays that the student's done, put it into I guess that's to him, that's the work he's done. What are you talking about? Plagiarize? I didn't plagiarize. I glued these together. Can't you see that line of Pritt stick here? Yeah, that's work. Yeah, that's serious academic work there. Who else would have had the ingenuity to join these two separate fragmented ideas and to make a single article that they're going to submit to a journal? Yeah, they didn't have the forthwith to do it. I did it, didn't I? So therefore I should be praised. Like this, these people don't have no clue. Let's read. A Cambridge professor resorted to legal threats and lies to stop this newspaper from publishing details of a university investigation which upheld a complaint that he plagiarized his students' essays. Dr. William OReilly, an associate professor in early modern history, threatened Varsity with legal, so that's this newspaper, with legal action if the newspaper reported that he had been found to have copied one of his undergraduate supervision essays. So once again, he's really leaning into that white male privilege here. O'Reilly's solicitor said that any such claim was demonstrably wrong and had no factual basis. Well, sorry, O'Reilly, your solicitor is probably going to be busy soon because I'm going to be spilling this to the world, and I hope other people pick up on this and publish it more. We're going to make you famous, sir. After further inquiries by Varsity, however, O'Reilly's solicitor conceded in August that the complaint of plagiarism had been upheld by the university and that he would not have any grounds to pursue legal action if it were to be reported. Yep, because it's not defamation, it was upheld. You are guilty. The Financial Times initially reported that the complaint of plagiarism had been upheld by a university tribunal, but that the professor would keep his job. Following a 2-year investigation, the tribunal ruled that the offense was, read this, guys, the offense was the product of negligent acts, but not deliberate. The product, they acted like some external force came and tractor beamed the writing into his article. So I just fell asleep one day. I woke up and there it was. I hit submit before I knew that it had been copied and pasted into my article. Guys, just have a look at this screenshot. Yeah, this highlight. This is like a complete block of text that he just like picked up and dropped into his article, and yet they've called it the product of negligent acts but not deliberate. This is like white male privilege. Yeah, this is like when a white male pew-pews up a school. Riley was an unfortunate individual who was misguided into believing that his acts would ultimately be appreciated. Like, come on, guys. Like, there's no accountability. These guys who whinge and whine and want to bring violence to the rest of the world, when it comes to them actually doing the thing, there is always no accountability. There's no accountability for this guy. He's not even sorry. He's not even sorry. He doesn't even care. So how dare they catch me? Sorry, guys. Give me one moment. Sorry about that, guys. Documents seen by Varsity show that more than 12 pages of an article by O'Reilly. I really need to know how long this article was. I really do, because I feel like it probably isn't even up to 20 pages. It's hilarious. Seen by Varsity show that more than 12 pages of an article by O'Reilly published in the Journal of Austrian American History had been lifted almost word for word from 2 essays by one of his students. This guy is a absolute plagiarism beast. O'Reilly, who was the student supervisor, had originally commented the essays for their ingenuity. In written feedback, he told the students, "Such an excellent piece of work. You have coined an original narrative. You create a new study, which I will soon be profiting from." The student who wrote the essays told Varsity that he was incredulous when he found out the plagiarism was deemed negligent. I mean, negligent, how can you call it negligent? Negligent means it's kind of like passive, I was involved in it, but I wasn't the actual doer. That's what negligent means. Yeah, it's kind of like it's my fault, but not like you have to literally like highlight Control C, Control V. Even worse is when you're actually retyping, you're quoting but without quotations. this dude's got. Oh, guys, listen. I need to wrap it up, guys. I've had a whale of a time on this live stream, but I actually just did that call I just got was a reminder that I need to do the gymnastics run for my daughter. So look, guys, I've done what I wanted to do. I wanted to introduce you to, or not introduce you to, show you the double standards that exist, but in high definition, to see that this witch hunt, once again, against Dr. Arday is entirely unwarranted. It goes against precedents. It goes against propriety, sorry. It goes against everything in terms of like what is a pattern, what's a structure. It goes against academia. None of what the media are doing is warranted. None of it. And you can see from this example, from the example that I've given you, that there's a complete double standard, because when someone does worse, like much worse, they don't even care. It doesn't even make the news, let alone a front page. So you can see none of this is to do with, you know, his impropriety. None of this is to do with whether or not he's a competent individual. This is to do with the fact that he's black and he's in a position that they don't want him to be, because when white people do worse, they do not care. Guys, if you're going to do me one favor, other than leaving me a super chat, if you're going to do me another favor, yeah, please circulate this article, circulate Dr. William OReilly, and let that be your only response when it comes to discussions regarding Dr. Arday. We don't need to argue anything else. We just need to state this is a double standard, and here is the evidence. On that note, guys, I got to go. Have a good one. Check you later. Peace. Hit the like button as well. You could do that as well. That would be much appreciated.